Are we going to come to a place where we fully empower our government institutions to do what they're called to do, therefore negating the need to have parallel independent commissions? Or if we are going to have independent commissions running alongside government, then can we be clearer in our laws to demarcate responsibilities and allocate resources towards the quote-unquote devolved responsibilities? Because what you're seeing with DCI and what you're seeing with EACC is not just that, it's not localized just there. This is replicated along several other institutions where you see that sort of interface. The problem is at the end of the day, what you're seeing on the headline, everybody thinks somebody is doing something, in the end nobody gets to do it.
Right.
Or everybody thinks somebody is doing nothing and then everybody turns up and is doing the job, and then you have tough wars. Who's the winner now? Is the criminals and the other people who are getting away with rape, murder and manslaughter. Then with the opaqueness that you have with the different organizations, you find what DCI knows they don't want to tell EACC, what EACC knows they don't want to tell DCI. At the end of the day, even if either of them takes the matter to court, they don't have a strong enough case because somebody somewhere withheld something from somebody else that would have aided in the matter. So it's something that it's very serious, and I'm glad somebody is putting it out, because the laws in Kenya now we have there's too much detail, they're too verbose, and at the end of the day we are the ones who are shooting ourselves in the foot, because people are going. And I've said here before, sometimes you take the matter in court as a way of assisting, because once you've been tried and acquitted, the rule of double jeopardy means even if we find fresh evidence against you, it's now we have to institute a fresh matter. And sometimes you could successfully argue double jeopardy if it's in the same set of circumstances as before. So it's something that needs to be addressed, I think, urgently. I
remember sometimes in June, there was a joint press conference between EACC and the DPP, that is Nuruddin Haji, and the leadership of EACC, by that time led by CEO Halake Wako. And part of the holes that the DPP was poking into how EACC was operating is in as far as he was saying that some of the files that they have received, he has had to return them because they have some gaps. And he was saying that now they were trying to have officers from the DPP's office working with the EACC as they investigate. And I'm just wondering, what is so difficult for these institutions to be complementary to each other's efforts, so that in the end you work on a case together and end up with findings that can really stand trial to conviction?
You know, the most unfortunate thing of these institutions is that the time Halake was there alone, before we saw an aggressive DCI, he had an opportunity to do all this. Now, I don't see why they are fighting now. Because you had an opportunity. It was your field. You were fully responsible. At that time, the DCI's office, before Kinoti came in, was not working. We didn't even bother to know that they can deal with corruption anyway. So it was Halake. So why should you now start fighting now? It means somebody has awakened you up to show you you're supposed to be doing this. Now, because you don't, because you know, in quotes, Kenyans will start saying, then you have no business being there. That is why you are doing this. So I want to tell them, stop those politics, especially EACC. Just do your job and help each other. For me, we have to support the DCI. And for now, we don't need to blame Halake. He's leaving.
Right.
So I would rather ask government and the president that why can't Kinoti just come and become the CEO of EACC and your deputy becomes is promoted? Because right now, when you look at the reforms of the police, I think their cadre has really gone down. So instead of losing such a bright person who is in need to see corruption goes, put him now at the rightful institution. He will now complement very well with his counterpart on this other side, and they will work together, and they will help the DPP to achieve now real corruption, what we are talking about. If that can work, it will help them. Because Halake is leaving, so you are looking for a CEO. So again, you now want to bring another CEO, and we'll have the same problems. Why?
But let me ask you, Joy, because you may have had an opportunity to observe matters, investigations, and how the laws are working. When you look at EACC, I remember during that press conference, the CEO, Halake Wako, was indicating that it's not true that EACC is the weakest link, because that had been attributed to the DPP when he appeared before Parliament, which they later on appeared together to say that's not the position. So I'm just wondering, even if you change the CEO, you don't change the system. So how do you enhance the investigating capacity of EACC and ensure that there is efficiency in the work that they do, so that you do not have all the time to fall back on DCI, who has so many other crimes to investigate and prosecute in court?
Since the inception of EACC, whether it was CAS, CASA, CAC, EACC, there's been one common thread all along. It's never been given sufficient tools or teeth to be able to effectively fight corruption. Either they can investigate or they cannot prosecute. Sometimes they're told, okay, maybe we can prosecute, but they cannot. Anytime they try to make forging ahead, you see there's a case that's been brought or it was unconstitutionally formed. So we found the way it was, the concept was basically to assuage the donors we had at that time to look like we were fighting corruption. But even the people who initiated the CAS, or CASA as it was then, were not serious about establishing an institution that was effective in fighting corruption. We have to begin on that premise. So what we've been doing all along is saying, oh, they're failing. We do some piecemeal amendments to the law and try and give them a little bit more bite, a little bit more teeth, a little bit more claws to try and hopefully debunk the myth that they are actually a sitting duck, a lame duck.
Right.
But what we have seen now with a powerful and effective DCI and a powerful and effective DPP, I agree with what Senator Elachi is saying. Now you see how unnecessary it is to have the EACC there. The EACC, when it was founded, was on a wrong foundation. In my opinion, it's one of those institutions that even if you're going to have an EACC, we have to scrap what we have, trash that law, rethink what we want it to be able to do. What is the DCI not able to do? What is the DPP not able to do? Where can they come in? Then restructure a law that gives them the tools that they need to do that which they need to do from inception. Because from inception, it was never meant to be effective. So what we have now is patchwork. You know, you see the crack, you put in the little, you see something, you show it up a little bit, and we've gotten to a place where, in my opinion, as an institution, even with all the necessary laws that have been amended so far, there's still gaps and it's still unable. And then there's the organizational culture, where it's just going around in circles. It's a lot of activity without too much results. And we've gotten to a place where really there's a better use of our resources. EACC has to be rethought. And if it's trashing it and starting afresh, maybe that's what we need to do.
But unfortunately, this process has always been influenced by politicians, whether they are they're in parliament or they are outside parliament. And even if you go to review this law, it will still be done by politicians who are the lawmakers by law. There's no problem with that. But ethics and anti-corruption commission, anti-corruption work being done by DCI, ethics, how successful is EACC in enhancing ethics in public service?
You know, first of all, before you even go to that, you look at the remuneration package. And that's where the problem comes in. Because you find the DCI, Mr. Kinoti, struggling so much, yet at the EACC you're earning a salary of 1.5 million. And here maybe you're even earning more than the IG. Meaning, what is Kinoti's salary to start with? But you want his officers to do the work. And for me, I want to tell just government, it can't work this way. It can't. It is wrong. Because both of them are doing the same thing. What is so different?
But the package may have been influenced, or rather informed by the desire to lure officers away from being enticed by the corrupt.
Yes, but you see, that is only EACC. So these are the ones who are they lure, and they are the ones who are doing more of the work. You will find they are the ones who went for the NYS. So when I'm getting all this money, what is my incentive out of it? Because let us be honest, these are Kenyans, and you are a human being, and you are getting the loot, but you're wondering, my salary, you will just feel this is a very dangerous job. So if first of all is protecting both, then we must, that's why I was saying, rethink of this whole process. First of all, bring the officers at par. Fine, they can have a salary of whatever, but they must have an allowance that says the wee hours they work, because sometimes they come to you very early in the morning and all that. So how do you protect Kinoti? How do you protect him from people feeling, you have a lower salary? His officers, he can, by his values, he can stand firm. But what about his officers? it's something that they have to relook at. So when we are bringing in a new CEO of EACC, we have to relook also and see, first of all, how do we make them to be one? And I know the officers at the EACC, we have one from the DPP's office, we have another one from the DCI. So they sit together, by the way. But what I don't understand is whether also their salaries or their allowances, you have enhanced them in a manner where they won't feel anything.
You think they need to have some similarity?
I have always said that, that these two are working the same job. It is wrong for government to think this is more special, and yet you are using this one more than the other. First, you unify that so that we don't find those conflicts, and then we sit down, because we will know we are each other colleagues. Yeah, and at that time we will sit, and that's why I'm saying, when we are looking for the CEO, let us have someone, even if it's not him, let us have someone who has worked closely with the DPP, closely with the DCI. You will find them now having a web that whatever comes from the DCI goes through, because we, like for example, Nairobi County. Nairobi County, we have cases in the EACC, we have cases at the DCI. Now, both of them I'm blamed. I'm told it is me who wrote letters, which, you know, I'm not, I don't need to say yes or no, because I'm a public officer. Any of state agency, the law says they can come anytime. So I have never understood why they thought it was me. But now, the next time they come in, and they have come in again, and EACC has been there again, I don't know who wrote again. But having said that, I look at the cases. You find, you go to EACC, you'll find a whole file that started way back in 2016 before I joined Nairobi County. Someone had already taken their file, and so I always ask myself, why did they act that time? Because you would have avoided so much. So you have waited the DPP to come in. He has taken the 13 allegations. The DCI has done 13 allegations. He has dealt with one. They are still following up the others. Now you have come in very strongly. I can see they have a report of how did we recruit our CEO, I mean our chief officer, since he was seconded from Parliament, and then all of a sudden became a clerk this side without being approved by the assembly. It is something they are wondering how. And how do you call him your clerk when you had not approved him? Where did he get the powers of continuing working with you people and you didn't do this? You see, now EACC is questioning that, which is true. It was wrong for Nairobi County to just pick the clerk who has resigned from the assembly, the National Assembly, and don't do recruitment. I mean, you don't throw out recruitment so that you see he will be preferable, but you take him through the right process. Then he is passed by the assembly. That was never done. They went to court quietly. In July, that means there was no board. So you can't say you went to court in July and come with consent. Who sat on the board? There was no members. Members were already past nomination. Therefore, you're no longer a member of Nairobi County until you're elected. So those were some of the wrong things, processes, the ones that nullified my president's elections. And by the way, the courts have to also be very serious now with processes, so that we follow process, the right due process. And I think that is why also I want to plead with the two, that there are so many cases in your different, in EACC, finish them, so that also people can find themselves, a file is closed, am I guilty or not guilty? You move on with your family. Now, when you keep them, you're coming out of court, you have another case waiting for you. I don't think it's also fair for those, for the accused.